Dean.
I think the guys have all touched on the major things. It's like anything, if it's important, you've got a plan to do it. So you're fronting up to an interview or you're fronting up to a job itself, you've got a plan as to how it's going to go. You've got to visualise, where it is, okay, where am I going to park when I get there? As simple as that. If you're going somewhere where you don't know, don't be running around frantically trying to find a park so that you arrive there flustered and heated and you're knocked off your game so you can't be there. It is as simple as little things like that. And like in Dave's event planning process at a major golf tournament, down to simple things like where you're going to park your car, come back to haunt you later on if you haven't been able to find your place to park your car and you end up being 10 minutes late because you might as well turn around and walk back out the door. So planning. A big thing I think is also, not acting like you do know it all. Treating the person that interviews you with respect. That, as Dave said, there's a 99.9% chance that they know a hell of a lot more than you do. Not always, believe me, but mostly. So, treat them as if they do know more than you, rather than you've got to show that you're knowledgeable and that you understand their business. But you also don't tell. I've had people trying to tell me how to run my business in an interview. And it's just switch off, gone, straight away. And the last one I think Dave touched on, very, very important. I think one of the most important things is ask good questions, because that shows that you are interested enough in what they do and that you also respect that you're a commodity that's actually got some value. And that's, I'm interviewing you as well as you interviewing me. Don't overplay it, but at the same time, let them know that you're a valuable commodity and that you've got options and that you would like to know a little bit about their business to make sure that they're the right fit for you as well as the other way around.
I think real quick, the other thing, I think if you can adopt some kind of New Zealand accent, I think you're a step ahead of the game. Everything Dean says is so damn compelling. You can be selling ice to an Eskimo, but it just sounds good. So if you can mix in some kind of British accent or English or Australian accent, just for the day, I think it's really helpful.
Great. I was going to say, one last thing I just thought of it listening is be able to tell your career story sequentially. And if you took 6 months off because you got laid off or something happened, don't be afraid to tell that in the interview. When we interview people, we see somebody that worked here in June and then they didn't do anything for a year and a half and they don't list that in their resume. That's kind of a red flag to us that maybe they're hiding something or they're embarrassed about something. I think it's just best to be who you are and be upfront with everything. And if something didn't work out a job and you took 6 months off, just let people know that, because sometimes human nature takes over and you assume the worst. So just be upfront with where you've been and what you've done and why you're there today.
Okay. Yesterday on the golf course, we had a great day of golf. And Dean, you get credit for bringing the fine weather with you, and we got through it on that. But in the game of golf, if you're a Saturday hacker like myself, there's this thing called a mulligan, or a do-over. Where you got to take a second shot on.
Where I'm from, it's called cheating.
Yeah. You're a pro. We're going to give you look back on your 10 years. If you had a do-over or a mulligan, and you could change one thing, it's going to be the toughest question we're going to throw at you all day. After this, we'll enjoy the rest of it. But you could change one thing in that 10 years. What's your Molly? What would you do differently? Oftentimes we'll tell students this industry is not all a bed of roses. We're training them for a dysfunctional lifestyle.
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
Yep. I think you got to, and it took me a long time to realise that you're always going to meet people that, excuse my terminology, are going to be assholes. You are. Whether you're a CEO reporting to a board, there's always going to be one director on that board that's going to cause you grief and annoy you and just, hound you every day of your life and make your life a misery. Overplaying it slightly, but I guess the mulligan is just accept that that's what's going to happen. So changing one situation to another, in other words, I'll go from this organisation to another because of that person or that relationship, you've got to get over that and say, because there's a likelihood that that's going to be the same where you go. There's going to be somebody that in a position of authority that's going to annoy you to the extent where you go, I've had enough of this guy, it's driving me nuts. Often that, again, their intellect's probably, you're thinking this guy's an idiot, what am I dealing with this guy for? He's my superior, or he's in a position of authority. You've just got to get over that, because you're just going to find that anywhere you go, you are going to find that. That's my experience anyway. Not a lot of them, but there's going to be one person or one situation that's going to cause you to doubt whether that's the path that you want to go on. And you've just got to say, I'm bigger than that, and that is what I want to do, and I'm not going to let this particular individual upset me.
Okay. Other mulligans, other do-overs.
I would say at one point I allowed other people to influence a decision of mine, and I didn't really trust my gut. I was an assistant director, and an associate director position opened up within the department I was working in, and I really didn't want it. I mean, I didn't want the job. It was not at all what I wanted to do, but everybody said, Terry, you've got to do this to show that you want to move and progress within the organization. And I said, but I don't really want the job. I'm like, I don't want to be the person that's overseeing initial eligibility waivers and progress toward degree waivers. I said, I just don't really want this job. And everyone said, but you got to apply for it. And I knew in my gut I didn't want it, but based on the feedback that people were providing, I applied for the job, and it was a terrible interview. I did awful. I obviously didn't get the job, and thank goodness, because I went in a completely different path. But at the end of the day, I didn't trust myself to know what I really wanted. I was allowing other people to influence a decision of mine, and luckily that was pretty early on in my career. But I learned at that point I'm going to continue to trust my own instincts and know that I can make the right decisions, and I'll continue to get feedback from people. But at the end of the day, it's my decision to make on what I want to do with my career and the decisions that I want in the paths that I want to take.
David, we saw you on your last week at Pinehurst on your way to Augusta.
Yeah.
And so this could be it. You could spend the rest of your career there. Why not? But let's go back. Chad and I played golf in Cleveland a lot, but we'd only take one mully per nine. I want you to know. And we're hackers. But if you could go back in your 10 years and you could do one thing over, what would you do differently?
It's more of an attitude. I think when I left here, there's a fine line between self-confidence and cockiness. And I think when I left here, I was maybe a little too cocky. And that goes back to what I was talking about before, where I really thought I could run that first golf tournament by myself. I thought I knew everything. And even after that first tournament, the second tournament, I was like, all right, I know it all now. I definitely know it all, and third and so on. Finally, probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I realized that I was always going to be learning, and I never would know it all. And so I guess I kind of go back and just kind of wish I was a little more mature and less cocky when I left here. And that would have worked better for me.
We wish you were less cocky too.
Josh, other than missing your cab ride here this morning,
That's
one mully, what would you
That's
do
what I was going to
differently?
say. The great thing about playing golf with you, Jim, there's a bunch of mulligans, and I think that I've got a scrapbook of them. I've stumbled over myself so many times. Professionally, I think my biggest faux pas was the Chargers. My internship, they were a terrible team. I'm from San Diego, a humongous Chargers fan. That was, for me, that was the ultimate. And one of my jobs was to write game stories. After the game on Sunday, I would write a story, would post on Chargers.com. This is the very beginning of the internet, and they were like 0-5, 0-8, 0-9. I was just getting living, and the stories each time would get a little bit more like, God, this is driving me crazy. I'd write a story and it'd be like, close one, getting better, and the Chargers were, only lost by 14 today, and they were getting better. So finally, we were like 0-11. They were playing Kansas City Chiefs, and Warren Moon, who was a 47-year-old quarterback, we had a lead like 10-7 at home, and he came back and beat us on a game-winning drive, and I was just livid. And I just wrote a scathing story on the Chargers.com that said these overpriced offensive linemen have got to start making holding calls in the crucial moments of the game, and just crushed the team. And it posted, and the next morning in the San Diego Union Tribune, there was an article that said, it was headlined, criticism.com, and I said, how bad is it with the Chargers? Even their own website is crushing the team. It listed like 2 paragraphs that I'd written. And That was one of the 4 times I've cried at work. All eyes on me. It was horrible, but it's just a horrible judgment call.